Hi guys, in this video I'm going to define proactivity to perfection. And I'm telling myself, Olivia, please, please say it in front of the camera the way you've been saying it to yourself for hours. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. You have no idea how hard I'm trying. Okay? I talk to myself a lot. And I'm so excited about this video, by the way. I love proactivity. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I've been actually talking to you guys all the time. Off camera, I'm talking to you guys all the time. But what that translates to is talking to myself a lot. Now, when I turn the camera on, I'm not crazy. Because I'm obviously talking to you guys, right? When the camera's off, though, I do a lot of talking to myself. Don't tell anyone. But I promise you, by the end of this video, you will know proactivity like the back of your hand. You will know how proactive you are. You will know how to spot a proactive person a mile away. And most importantly, you will know how to spot the opposite, a reactive person a mile away. You will know just how your own level of proactivity and just how reactive you can be. You will have tools to help yourself be more proactive, be less reactive. It's going to be really cool, actually. You're going to get a lot out of this video. I promise you. Okay. I always keep my promises, by the way. So, proactivity. By the way, another by the way. Be proactive is Stephen Covey's first habit of his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I love. You guys know he's one of my heroes. He's somebody I admire and I respect very much. His book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is phenomenal. And of course I'm using it as a guide today in this video, talking about several of his concepts and several of the things that he talks about and that are just incredible to reflect on. So, proactivity is not just taking initiative. I think most people understand just simply by the word proactive that it means to sort of take some action, right? But proactivity is not just taking any kind of action, okay? It's taking responsibility for your actions. And you guys know that I believe owning your happiness means taking responsibility. Being proactive is really the first step, the first step to being happy. One of the first, I think there are like a lot of first steps, but one of the steps to being happy, because without action, you can't have anything. Now, proactive people, well, first let me talk about what the word responsibility means, and you can think about it yourself. Response and ability, it's separated, and it means the ability to make a response, right? The ability to act. That is what proactivity means. But proactivity is neither good nor bad, right? Criminals are incredibly proactive. There are so many bad people in this world who are proactive. Good proactivity, or proactivity is defined, or is exemplified, I guess, by the individual being proactive, right? Depending on that person's values and principles will be whether that person is proactive in a good way or proactive in a bad way. Now, people who are proactive in a good way, they are people who take responsibility for their actions. They don't blame anyone or anything or any circumstance or the environment for their actions. They take responsibility for everything that they do, that they say, and that they feel. The opposite of proactive is reactive, right? And what that means is that those people usually blame, accuse, victimize themselves and others. They point out the weaknesses of others. They blame everything and everyone and the environment and everything, okay? Circumstances, for the way they are, for their actions, for their feelings, for their thoughts. That's what being reactive means. Okay, my knees are shaking a little bit, and I'm thinking, is this an Elvis thing? Am I nervous and they're shaking? Sometimes they're shaking because I'm standing and I'm so focused that I kind of get stiff. And sometimes I like move and it's like my legs are like logs and there's no blood going to them, and I have to remind myself, like, Olivia, it's okay. It's okay. They like you. It's okay. It's okay. I like myself. You like yourself. It's okay. Shake your legs a little bit, okay? Shake your legs. And this reminds me of the military, okay? It's kind of like a bit of a PTSD thing, okay? When I learned to march and everything, they used to tell us, and you had to stand up in attention, they used to say, relax your legs a little bit. Relax your legs, because you'll cut your circulation. Like, it's the same thing now. Who knew that I would be able to use that advice now, although I'm not doing the greatest job. But okay, my legs are not shaking anymore. I am back. And I have to think of my train of thought for a second and go to the other camera so it doesn't look like jarred, right? It's the power of editing. So not jarring at all, right? So there are a couple of things, very important things that define good proactivity versus bad proactivity, okay? 4 categories of what it takes to be proactive. And out of those 4 categories, 1 is the one that determines whether it's going to be good or bad. But the first one we're going to talk about is self-awareness. Self-awareness is something that is uniquely a human endowment. Only we are capable of being self-aware. Wait a minute, Olivia. I have a dog. I swear to you, I know what the dog is thinking. No, I have a cat. I know my cat knows what I'm feeling. I get it, guys. I love cats. Don't have any right now, unfortunately, but I've had plenty and they've been smart. I understand. Animals are incredible. They're wonderful. We love our pets. We love animals. But they're not self-aware. They may be aware to a certain extent, but they're not self-aware unless they've been divinely touched. Okay? Even dolphins and all these animals that are highly, highly intelligent, they're not self-aware. So what does self-aware mean? You can train a dog, but that dog can never be in charge of that training. That dog can never guide that training, direct that training, control that training, stop that training, start that training. Dog can't do that. We are capable of directing our own training, our own lives. That is what truly that self-awareness means. Now, being self-aware is supremely important to being proactive, because if you don't see yourself, you can't change. You can't direct yourself if you can't see who you are. Now, where does our self-awareness come from? Well, you're always going to hear me say it comes from within, right? But that doesn't take away the fact that we live in a world, or that we also derive our opinion and our perception of ourselves from others. It is actually a natural thing when a child starts to develop. They pick up cues from their parents and their siblings, etc. They understand who they are by reflecting themselves onto the way others see you. This is a natural thing, but it kind of gets twisted later on by something called the social mirror. The social mirror is what everybody and their mother thinks about us, right? And we absorb that kind of thing. For example, let's say somebody says, "Oh, Olivia, you're always late." Maybe it's true. Maybe I am always late. But they say it as if that's it, right? You're late. There's There's no other way that it can be. That's not true, right? I can make an effort not to be late. Let's say something more about your personality. Oh, you're lazy. Olivia, you're lazy. You're such a lazy bum. Maybe sometimes. But I don't have to be. I can make a choice not to be, right? But all these little things, these are inputs by everybody, everywhere, all the time that we absorb. And sometimes we believe them, right? And of course, when you get to the sad ones, as in you're bad, or when people are being emotionally abused. And abuse is a harsh word, but guys, there are a lot of people who intake a lot of negativity, who don't think anything is wrong. It's sort of like, yeah, you're just sort of taking this beating by everybody around you. That's kind of the social mirror. How you react to it is what matters here, right? The social mirror leads to the 3 social maps, where that kind of the world operates on. Okay, these are the ways that people sort of normally behave in, believe about themselves, act on. And they are so because they're very popular. The 3 social maps. They're popular because they're easy. It's easy to be bad, or to believe bad things about yourself, or to believe it's an inertia. And inertia is sort of the worst state to be in. Even people who are like stepping backwards and regressing, it's kind of better than just inertia. Maybe in one of those backward steps, they'll wake up. Something will happen that will propel them forward. But if you're just stationary, there's no movement. There's no possibility for you to move forward or backward type of thing. But the first social map, wait a minute here. Hold on, guys. Hold on to your horses. Olivia, that's not the expression. That's not even close to the expression. I know, guys. I do this all the time. I call it my Ziva moments for those of you NCIS fans. For those of you who are not NCIS fans, Ziva in that show was an Israeli spy who always got the colloquial English sayings wrong. And I do this continuously. Not sure at all what the right expression is right now. Normally, my mom or my wife are right there to correct me and to tell me very emphatically that I'm wrong. But you guys are not coming through for me, guys. Seriously. Like, what is the expression? I don't know. But you kind of get the point. I have gone astray in my train of thought. Before I tell you about the social mirrors, I want to talk slightly more about those dogs and that self-awareness I was talking about. There is something called, you've heard it, Pavlov's experiments with dogs, right? Pavlov was a Russian physiologist, and he is responsible for basically starting this awareness of this movement called conditioning, right? Conditioning to a response. The stimulus response theory is sort of, they all kind of swirl together. Okay, and Pavlov rang a bell and gave a dog food afterwards. And afterwards, he rang a bell and didn't give the dog the food, right? And essentially, he noticed that the dog was salivating, right? You ring a bell, he had been conditioned that would bring him food, and then now, when he doesn't get it, he's still salivating, right? So what this is basically saying is that we're all conditioned to react automatically. There's the stimulus response theory. There is something that happens to us, and we will automatically react to it. Period. Dot. Yeah, no. Sorry. But that's the stimulus response theory. And there are people in the world like Stephen Covey and me who don't believe that is the end all and be all. And Covey gives a phenomenal example in his book. that I'm going to share with you about a gentleman named Viktor Frankl. Do you guys know who Viktor Frankl is? No? Fear not. Fear not. I'm here to tell you. Viktor Frankl was a German psychiatrist who has studied under the philosophy of determinism, which is in the school of Freudian psychology, which basically says whatever happened to you as a child determines your personality and your character and who you are. And sorry, but there's not much you can do about it. That's the kind of school of thought that he came from, which, by the way, rules a lot of the world we live in today. So Viktor Frankl lived during World War II, and he was a Jew, and he was imprisoned by the Nazis and sent to concentration camps. And his entire family was exterminated in the gas chambers, except for himself and his sister. Although I don't know if he knew this at some point in the... I'm sure they were separated, I don't know the timeline, but while he was there being routinely tortured, he didn't know from one second to the next whether he'd be going to the gas chambers that day or not. And by the way, there are a lot of examples of evil in this world, unfortunately. Nazi Germany is one of the most intense examples of evil of the 20th century. And of course it's exemplified by Adolf Hitler as he being sort of the head, the catalyst, but he was a catalyst. He was a figurehead. But that kind of evil is not just one person, right? It's an entire world. It's an entire society, culture, political apparatus, military apparatus that allow that to happen. That's why it is such a scary example of the power of evil, the power that evil can have in this world. But guess what? All the people who brought them down are an example of the power of good that can happen in this world too. Anyway, one day, Viktor Frankl was naked and alone inside a small cell, thinking to himself that the Nazis had control over everything in his life. They had control over his environment. They had control over his body, his torture. They had control over what they'd done to his family. He had control over everything. But in a moment, he thought, against everything that he had been taught, that they didn't have control over what he was thinking and what he was feeling about what they were doing to him. So he began to think in the moments of torture. He began to imagine himself lecturing his students after being released from the concentration camp. This is while he was being tortured, okay? He was imagining that he was already out and he was already teaching his students the lessons he had learned from this atrocity. And that is how he found not just a way to survive, but a way to rise beyond survival. We can all survive, by the way, but rising beyond that survival is a different story. And it requires a supreme amount of proactivity. I say we can all survive because survival is automatic. It's that pesky survival, but it protects us. Okay, that flight or flight has to be automatic in order to really work. But that's where we get in trouble, right? Where we can get in trouble later on when we're not surviving anymore. The body has gotten used to it, survival mode. And that's what you call emotional triggers and things like that. Okay, different video. understanding the concept of stimulus and response is very important. And the story of Viktor Frankl is, of course, an extreme example. But because it is extreme, it is also just an extreme. It is such a powerful example of hope, of the triumph of the human will, the triumph of the human spirit, of the good proactive human spirit. There is no amount of evil or Nazi torture that could stop the light of a truly proactive heart. And Viktor Frankl is an example of that. Now, Stephen Covey brilliantly, eloquently points out in his book that between stimulus and response, something the majority of the scientific world did not believe and maybe sometimes does not believe now, between the stimulus and the response, we have the freedom to choose. That is supremely powerful, and that is what Viktor Frankl did, naked and alone, being tortured in his cell. And we can do that every moment of our lives. So, between stimulus and response, we have the freedom to choose. Now I can segue into the 3 social maps, okay? These are the 3 maps that govern and determine the way a lot of people behave in the world today. And throughout time, although I do think that in our time it is much more apparent. The first social map is genetic determinism. Genetic determinism. What does that mean, Olivia? That means your grandparents did it to you guys. That means it's your DNA. I love this one, but not really, right? I cannot tell you the amount of times I have heard in my life somebody say to me, it's in my DNA. I'm the way I am because I've inherited this or that, right? Anything from bad tempers to manifested diseases X, Y, and Z. All the time. Not so much now. But when I worked and was exposed to a lot of different people, I used to hear this a lot. Nope, sorry, don't believe it. Genetic determinism says you are the way you are because you're genetically predisposed to being that way. Okay, guess what? I love it when science catches up to the things I believe in instinctively. Now there is a field of science called epigenetics. I love epigenetics. Epigenetics has discovered that for every gene we have, so far, they're discovering more things every day. There are hundreds of ways that a gene can manifest itself. What does that mean, Olivia? Okay, fear not, I'll tell you. What that means is that our genetic expression is determined by, drumroll, our environment. Okay? It's determined by so many different things that are out of our control and also within our control. So, translate that to what I care about. For example, somebody saying to me, yeah, I have to watch my cholesterol. I'm prone to high cholesterol because my dad and my grandfather and my uncles, they all have it. And I'm thinking in my mind, okay. No, you don't. Could it possibly be that your dad, your uncles, and your father ate a certain way, had a certain lifestyle, and maybe that's why they have something that, in this case, high cholesterol? Of course, that's not what I say, because I can't, right? Most of the time. So, but that's what I think. I never possibly ever think that my DNA is responsible for anything other than the color of my hair, the color of my eyes, and the color of my skin. You get the point. We are in charge of our lives. And it so turns out, wonderfully, the genetic expression of our genes. Awesome. Awesome. Already knew it, but that's okay. Science catch up. Thank you. So there is something actually kind of cool. I've been wanting to do this for a while, haven't gotten around to it, but I researched it. You can get your DNA tested, right? In the United States, it costs about $100. You send in, I think, like a swab of your saliva or something, and they come back with a report for you, a genetic report, where you get to see the percentage of, racial heritage, among other things, but that's the main one, right? So, in my case, I already know some basics, right? I know that I have Spanish blood in me. I know that I have native Peruvian in me. I know that I have East Indian in me. And those are basically the three big ones. What else? No idea. Be fun to know. That's the kind of thing where people are like, am I like 1% sub-Saharan African or 5% Mongolian or something random that you had no idea, right? That's sort of the fun thing there. Cool Christmas present, I think. But in my research, I realized there's something else these companies offer. Something that I thought was astoundingly scary. They offer you like the deluxe package, blah, 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 where you find out, they give you like a medical report of every possible genetic mutation you might have that is prone to some disease. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. No way. Why would I ever want to look at that? No way do I even want to glance at that kind of information. The human mind is so impressionable. There are things, don't lie to me, there are things you've Googled and you wish Google Images hadn't just automatically appeared with certain images, and you will never be able to erase them from your mind. That is the power of the human mind. There are things we wish we had never seen. Movies, the other day I saw a movie, a cult classic, they say. I thought it was going to be like something cool, something lighthearted. It was horrifically dark. And I thought, why did I watch this? Why did I do this? Anyway. Don't care what my genetic mutations, what possible diseases XYZ from A to Z I can have. Don't care. It's not going to change who I am. It's not going to change how I live my life. It's not going to change what I think I do to be healthy. If there are 500 ways for, let's say, gene X disease to be expressed, one of those ways, it could express itself in disease. 499, it doesn't have to. I care about the 499. I don't care about that one. Don't want to know. So genetic determinism. Sorry. No. Don't believe in you. Bye. Second social map. Psychic determinism. This is supremely popular these days. Supremely popular. And it's very good in many ways. Okay? This one is saying your parents did it to you. Oh, I have a bad temper because my dad had a bad temper. Oh, I'm completely dysfunctional because I had an alcoholic father. Okay. Now what? Well, I had an alcoholic father. I can't change. You can't? Really? Your father was an alcoholic, but you're not, right? No, but children of alcoholics are like 90-something% more prone to being alcoholic and having problems. Yes, I know the statistics. I've read about them. Now what? So, psychic determinism is saying everything that happened to you as a child determines who you are. shapes who you are. Now, I say, you've heard me say, and I will say it many times, what happens to you as a child does shape who you are. Absolutely shapes who you are, but it doesn't have to define you ever for a second of your life. Will it define you? Yes, for a long time, until you figure out that it's defining you and you stop it. Is it easy? No. It's not easy. It's never easy. And the harder, the more, the harder, the more traumatic the childhood experience is, the harder it is to get out of those emotional scripts. Those emotional scripts are like what I was talking about earlier. They are automatic survival. As a child, your brain is incredible. If you're going through abuse, it'll protect you by either making you forget it or helping you to cope with it, coming up with ways that you can cope with the abuse, the neglect, whether it be physical, sexual, psychological, any abuse. It will help you cope. The problem is when you become an adult and you don't want to cope anymore, that's what you do. You cope. So that when your husband says something like, "Hi, darling, how are you?" you think the world ended. Something happened in your brain and you blow up. Right? That's just an example of something that can seem harmless, but to you, it's the end of the world. That's a psychological reaction, okay? So it does shape you, but you can work every second of your life to overcome it. The way Viktor Frankl, while being tortured, was overcoming it in his mind, in his soul. By the way, if you're getting professional help and that person doesn't believe you can get better, that's not the right person, guys. That's not a true healer. Somebody with the soul of a healer, somebody who wants to help you, believes you can get better. They believe in your power to improve and to get better. If they don't, sorry, goodbye. Spend your money where it matters. Spend your money, find somebody who believes in you. Because you're already having a hard time believing in yourself. You need somebody who will help you, who will believe in you too, for you to be able to believe in yourself and in your own power. That's psychic determinism. Now, the other side of that is the people who are completely and totally unaware of it at all, right? Oh, no, I'm sorry. What happened to me as a child did not affect me at all. I know these people too. And it's really sad to watch. It's really sad to watch their lives fall apart or their relationships complete, like their delusion, because they are not willing to look in the mirror. They're not willing to look at their past, at their lives, at what may have happened to them. They're not willing to take responsibility and to go through that pain. That is really sad. Psychic determinism, it's got its place. The way genetic determinism has its place in a way too, right? They are both accurate to a certain amount. But when you get into the mindset of, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. There's always something you can do. Third, social map. This is the most popular one in the world today, especially in highly densely populated urban areas. This one is called environmental determinism. And this one states that your environment, and by your environment I mean your husband, your wife, your friends you don't really want to be friends with, your bratty teenagers, your unruly children, your boss, your co-workers, people who were elected who you don't like, natural disasters. We can go on and on and on here, but you get the point. Everyone under Mother is responsible for you, your actions, your feelings, your ideas, your thoughts, your meltdowns. Everybody is responsible. This is a fun one to pay attention to because it is everywhere and it's hard to escape. To me, it's a pastime to when I have to engage with the outside world and I have to be cognizant of world events and things like that, oh, I'm looking at things, I'm reading things people say, etc. 1 second, one glance to understand whether that person is reactive or proactive. Of course, I'm gravitating, and I gravitate and I love proactive, good proactive people. I love that. That's what my nuggets are about, right? That's what I gravitate towards. What's the opposite of gravitating towards something? Repelling, being repelled by it, right? Reactivity, and which, by the way, is essentially synonymous with negativity, is repelling to me. It is nobody. I don't want to be near reactive and negative people. Okay. By the way, I haven't forgotten. I actually have to talk about reactivity, right? But right now, I'm talking about environmental determinism. That's right. Okay. So everybody is responsible for who you are, right? For who you choose to be. So you can easily spot these people everywhere and what they're saying. And if you aren't able to now, you will more and more the more you do it by the end of this video. But also the more you do it, the more you'll be aware of it. Okay. So these are the 3 social maps, guys, that kind of run the script of the world. Okay. Okay. So now I am going to go into the whole reactive versus proactive thing. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because I get to read to you from Stephen Covey's book, and I love that. I love reading to you. I love reading, but I also love reading to you. Reactive people, as I said earlier, are the kind of people that are driven to blame everyone else, right? It's determinism 100%. Right? So let's try to spot them, okay? This is like, where's Waldo, right? Okay. Example of reactive language. That's me. That's just the way I am. Guys, how many times have you done this? How many times have I done this? We know we've done this. We know we've done this. This is an easy one. What this person is saying, truly, behind that is, I am determined, there's nothing I can do about it. Another example. He makes me so mad. Yeah, how many times do we hear this one? She makes me mad, he makes me mad, everybody makes you mad, right? What's behind this particular reactive statement? I'm not responsible. My emotional life is governed by something outside of my control. I can't do that. I just don't have the time. Something outside me, limited time, is controlling me. By the way, this is one that I'm very sensitive to now because I used to do this a lot. Thankfully, I have. My wife read this book long before I ever did in high school, and then she read it again a few years ago, and she said, hey, Olivia, you should read this. And I said, nah, self-help, I don't do that. Yeah, I said that. And no, she says, you really have to. I said, okay, fine. I will. But even before then, she's like a hawk in catching this stuff, okay? And afterwards, like my reactive language or our reactive language, whenever I say I can't do something, she says, you can't, or you don't want to, or are you choosing not to? Okay. Shame. I do this myself now, okay? I police myself because I've gotten to the point where I know I should never say the words. The words I can't should never be uttered by me or anyone. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And if it's not that you can't, it's that you choose not to. Anyway, if only my wife were more patient. Someone else's behavior is limiting my effectiveness. I love these examples, guys, because not only do I love productivity, but I love, what is it called? It's called practicality. being efficient, having tools to help myself. Okay? That's one of my mottos. Okay? Mottos? Mottos? Okay. My wife usually helps me with that. Okay. Where are you guys? Seriously. Okay. Reactive language. Reactive language versus proactive language. Side by side. Okay? Ooh, fun. There's nothing I can do. Proactive example? Let's look at our alternatives. Let's look at our alternatives. That is not only proactive, but that just sounds smart, right? That just sounds smart. You picture that in like a business environment. Let's look at our alternatives, guys. Okay. ESL student? Okay. That's just the way I am. I can choose a different approach. Oh. He makes me so mad. I can control my own feelings. They won't allow that. I can create an effective presentation. And by the way, this one is kind of alluding to a work environment. And what I'll say to that briefly is that there are a lot of people, by the way, this book is phenomenal because it's got so many examples, so many human examples. Stephen Covey was, oh my God, a visionary, and he worked for something like 2 decades or more, maybe even 3. Teaching all these principles. So he had 1,000,001 examples that are phenomenal. But in the work environment, you have a lot of the reactivity presents itself in people who are just sort of like, yeah, my boss is terrible. In my case, government is not perfect at all, right? At all. So many problems in government agencies and the military, right? Time is not money there at all. It should be, but it's not. So it's so easy to be disgruntled. It's so easy to be negative, so easy to just sit back, especially in an environment like the military where, guess what? You get paid whether you're proactive and an awesome employee or whether you're not. And there are a lot of the not category, okay? In the private sector, it's not like that. You're not productive, sorry, see ya. Because we have like a line of people here. That's one good aspect about. That's something to learn from the private sector, right? But for the people who are reactive in a work environment, what this particular example was, oh, they won't allow that, versus I can create an effective presentation, is you excel. Doesn't matter if your boss is terrible, if your colleagues are terrible, if somebody's terrible. Somebody's above your boss. And even if your boss is terrible, he's terrible for a reason, okay? And if you are useful to him, if you are a good employee, if you do your best, you will be seen in a different light. I know because I've done this. Okay, I've been in an environment where nobody cares, where nobody wants to do anything. And I've put a little bit of effort. And I promise you, somebody will always care and it will always lead to something good. Always. When you do your best, when you are your best, proactive, amazing self, it will always lead to good things. Okay, next example. I have to do that versus I will choose an appropriate response. That's fun, isn't it? I will choose an appropriate response. How wise do you sound? I can't. I choose. I must. I prefer. If only I will. These are ways, these are tools in your proactive toolkit, okay? To pay attention to not only your language, but everyone else's. Now, I routinely police myself, okay? Not only am I policed by my wife's, but I police myself now, very much so. And to the point where I know when I say something reactive, and it like almost immediately. And I change it. Every night I take stock of my day, right? I'm lying in bed right before falling asleep, and even beforehand, I think, what did I do today? What did I say? Did I feel good about everything I say or not? And when I find the kinks, the things that I could improve on, the things that I wish I had done better, I think about them, I reflect on them, and that helps me grow. That's how you grow. But guess what? That takes self-awareness. Oh man, I totally forgot to talk about the 3 other aspects of being proactive, right? Okay, good job, Olivia. You're doing great. Yeah. Seriously. Okay. Now, before I can continue, let me go back to the 3 other aspects that are very important to proactivity. So we had self-awareness, then we have imagination, okay? That's what Viktor Frankl was using, right? He was imagining himself. He was visualizing himself. You've heard people say, right, all the time, oh, visualize yourself, visualize yourself. Okay, well, yeah, I do too all the time, by the way. I visualize all kinds of things. So imagine, because without imagination, nothing happens. So that is another aspect of proactivity, right? When you imagine yourself doing something, you can essentially make it happen for yourself. Oh, Olivia, come on, that's just something people say. No. In the Own Your Happiness video, I was talking about Dr. Carlos Rubia, a Swiss atomic physicist, right, who in 1984 discovered that it takes 1 billion units of energy to materialize 1 unit of matter. Love this. But this fuels that idea of you make things happen, guys, because thoughts are billions of times powerful. They're so powerful. When they materialize something, it's a force of billions of energy we can't even comprehend. Okay, I don't have to be an atomic physicist to understand it. I feel it instinctively, but it helps to have a Nobel Prize winning physicist kind of say that. That's what I mean. That's one of those things that I love when science catches up to our instinct, okay, to our intuition. Anyway, imagination, right? The next one is conscience. And this is the one I was talking about when I said that this is the one that determines good versus bad, right? Conscience. You can, well, I don't think you're very self-aware when you're choosing evil or criminality. You may think you are, but I don't think you are. But you're certainly using imagination, right? You're visualizing bad things versus good things. But in conscience is that moral compass inside you that drives you to good or bad. Period. Dot. Black or white, good or evil. But Olivia, we make mistakes. Of course we make mistakes, guys. Okay? I make mistakes. I've said it before and I will say it a million times. What you do after you make a mistake is what determines who you are. Yes, we all make mistakes. By the way, when people try to point those mistakes out as some kind of, holy grail to you, as this is why you're so bad. You've done this, and this. First of all, who are you talking to? And do you need to keep talking to that person? They're your parents. Okay. Oops. Okay, if they're your family, you may not have a way out, but you don't have to let it affect you. Okay? So conscience, right? Conscience affects our proactivity, determines whether it's good or bad. And the last one is independent will. Independent will it's our greatest weapon. It's the greatest, most incredible Excalibur sword of our triumphing spirit. Independent will. We choose. Between stimulus and response, we have the freedom to choose. That is independent will. Okay. Now let me go back to the examples of reactivity because I want to share a couple of more, okay? This one is about love. Ooh, love makes me feel fuzzy, makes me feel wonderful. I love love. Everybody loves love. We all want love. No, you don't. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Everyone wants love. Okay. Before the love one, though, there's a particular paragraph here that is just so beautifully eloquent, and just in case my eloquence was lacking in any kind of crisp eloquence, I'm going to read this, okay? A serious problem with reactive language is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People become reinforced in the paradigm that they are determined, and they produce evidence to support the belief. They feel increasingly victimized and out of control, not in charge of their life or their destiny. They blame outside forces, other people, circumstances, even the stars, for their own situation. Okay, by the way, Stephen Covey here, you can clearly, well, I don't know what you can clearly see, but when he mentions stars, he's alluding to astrology and whatnot, which, by the way, I believe in quite a bit. But it's one of those things. I don't use the stars to, like I don't use anything else to blame anything in my life. I use them to help me, right? No, it's not divination, guys. It's a map to help you, to guide you. Anyway, different video. Focus, Olivia, focus. Love, okay. At one seminar where I was speaking on the concept of proactivity, a man came up to me and said, "Stephen, I like what you're saying, but every situation is so different. Look at my marriage. I'm really worried. My wife and I just don't have the same feelings for each other we used to have. I guess I just don't love her anymore. And she doesn't love me. What can I do?" "The feeling isn't there anymore?" I asked. "That's right," he reaffirmed. "And we have 3 children we're really concerned about. What do you suggest?" "Love her," I replied. "I told you the feeling just isn't there anymore." "Love her. You don't understand. The feeling of love just isn't there." "Then love her. If the feeling isn't there, that's a good reason to love her." "But how do you love when you don't love?" "My friend, love is a verb. Love, the feeling, is a fruit of love, the verb. So love her, serve her, sacrifice, listen to her, empathize, appreciate, affirm her. Are you willing to do that?" I cannot tell you how much I love this example. This example lives with me. It has embedded itself in my soul. That's actually one of the... I'm very much a visual person, and I'm very much a person who feels things. So examples like this, so something textual, this explained to me textually, which I also know is okay. But when I hear a human example of that lesson being taught, that's what stories are about. That's what parables are for, right? Man, nothing sticks better in my soul and my mind better than that. Okay, never have I ever forgotten when I read this, or that I read this, or this example. And I have applied it years ago, and I felt things like, I wish she was this way, or I wish she was that way. I stopped and I said to myself, you know what? If that's what I want, that's what I have to be. Oh, I wish that she was more romantic. Guess what? I'm going to plan the most romantic weekend you can possibly think so. There's not going to be a better romantic weekend ever planned. Ever. Sorry, Shakespeare. Different century. This is my time. Okay? When you think that way, guess what happens? Guess what happens? I'll give you a hint. Really good things happen. Really good things happen. And when they do, you're like, this is magic. No, it's not. It's your effort. It's your proactivity. It lights up your world, guys. It lights up your world. Just be everything you want somebody else to be. Be it yourself. And everything will change around you. for the better. And it's addictive. When you see it happen once or a little bit, when your husband plans the next second greatest romantic getaway next month, and you think, oh my God, where did this come from? Well, guess what? It came from your effort, okay? You're like, oh my God, I didn't know you were this romantic. Well, I didn't know you were that romantic. We're awesome. Yeah, we're awesome. By the way, me and my wife and I are awesome. Yeah, okay, anyway. So, love is a verb. Love is a verb. Well, guess who is trying to convince us all the time that it's a feeling? Mainstream culture, okay? Hollywood, entertainment, they spend a whole lot of time on the narrative that love is a feeling and you have no control over it, okay? Olivia, does that mean you don't watch TV? Oh, no. I watch TV. In fact, sometimes I'm amazed at the amount of TV I have watched in my entire life. I kind of shudder sometimes at thinking, what could I have been? Could I have been learning the piano all that time? Seriously, I could possibly be a space scientist. What is that called? What is that phrase? Please come to me. You're not a space. You know what I'm talking about? Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, you get the point. I could be a lot of things if I use my time more wisely. But I do watch TV. Not in a traditional sense, right? Online, streaming, come on, right? So, guess what? I love movies. I went to film school, guys, okay? I love movies. I love stories. I wrote screenplays. I write books. I know what people are doing in a story to get me to read their story, right? Beyond just being the consumer. But I also know exactly what I'm reading. I know exactly what I'm watching. I know exactly the ideology behind it. I know what they're trying to sell me. I know what they're trying to push. I know what the message is. Naturally, these days I gravitate towards things that are proactive in nature, right? Things that are uplifting. I love hero stories. I love adventure. I love the triumph of the human will in everything that I consume, quote unquote, as entertainment, right? Gone are the days of tragedy in the self-serving tragedy sense. Okay, yes, I will experience the tragedy of a Shakespeare play, but by the way, there's always positivity after it, you know. But I know exactly what's going on when I consume something. Okay, and there are times when I am consuming something that is not what I believe in necessarily. It's just a good tale, it's a good yarn, but I don't let it affect me too much. It's impossible not to let it affect you 100% unless you avoid it, okay? But guess what? Children are not in control, right? Children are watching this and they don't know what to think. Oh, Olivia, they'll figure it out. We did. Yeah, you did. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, okay? Maybe, okay, you're my generation, I'll give it to you. Maybe 80s and 90s. But guess what, guys? This is a different world. I can still say I grew up without the internet. I can still say I was playing outside in the street. I can still say I had a Walkman, and I'm very proud of it. I still have it, by the way. A cell phone appeared in my life in college, and it was a tiny little Motorola with an orange screen where you just took 5 minutes to text something, right? It's a different world. If your child is in front of a telephone screen, okay, who says telephone screen? Come on. If your child has a mobile phone, it's not that either. Okay, if your child has a smartphone, you happy now? Seriously. iPad, computer, electronic device in front of their face. You can rest assured that every second of that experience, somebody's trying to sell them something, a product or an idea. Olivia, come on, it's just entertainment. No, sometimes it is. But most of the time it isn't. And if you don't teach them the values and if you don't give them the tools they need to discern good from bad, they're not going to know. There are a lot of parents today who are like, they'll figure it out because we did. Yeah, we lived in a different world. And we are good people, Olivia. We have good values. We're a good family. Okay. Are you just going to sit back and hope for the best? Do you guys know what the #1 channel on YouTube right now is? In terms of popularity, views, and money? It's a toy channel. Guys, it's a toy channel. It's a kid who reviews toys. What does this mean, Olivia? No, it doesn't mean that you wish you had that idea, right? Like anybody who has a cat wishes they had the grumpy cat idea. No, that's not what it means. What it means is that gazillions of children are watching this boy play or review a toy, and then afterwards their parents are going and buying this toy for them. That's what it means. It's just a toy, yeah, maybe. But guess who else is noticing? Everybody else who is trying to sell your child something is taking notice, is paying attention, is taking notes. Because they're trying to sell your child something too. They are the #1 target for consumerism. You get them young, you get them forever. That used to be, okay, we gotta get teenagers, right? Now it's toddlers, guys. Okay? You think for a second, don't ever doubt for a single second that every second your child is exposed essentially to technology these days, digital technology, that they're being sold something. Today it's toys, tomorrow it's ideology. And tomorrow is today, by the way. Tomorrow is, you can see it everywhere. You can see it everywhere. Public schools, academia, right? They will try to tell your child what to think, what to say, what to buy, what to be, unless you take charge. Take a proactive role as a parent. Okay, I spend a little bit of time on this, maybe a lot of time, who knows, because it's so important. Okay, and I'm sure there will be many, many ways in which I will address this in other videos, but I wanted to address it today. Okay. Next up is another tool to gauge your own level of proactivity and other people's level of proactivity. It's a concept Stephen Covey calls the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Okay? The circle of influence is everything you have influence over. Voila, you have control over. From the core of who you are, right? From the way you react to things to, let's say, okay, you have control. You have control over your immediate nucleus, your immediate family. You have control over whether your kid gets to school on time or not, right? You are in charge of that child's well-being, so however they wake up, and however you take them to school to be there on time, hello, there you go. You're responsible for that. What you're not responsible for is for the bratty, mean, unruly kids that your child goes to school with, right? You're not responsible for the good ones either, but we don't care about those right now. You're not responsible for those kids. You may worry about it. You may be right to worry about it, but you're not. You don't have control over those kids, right? Now, what do you do with your worry? Do you just say, whatever, they'll live? Yeah, maybe. Or you maybe switch them schools if it's that bad, or maybe you homeschool, right? Which is something that more and more people are doing because they just sort of, they're kind of in shock, perhaps, at what's going on. Okay? So, and really what that is taking charge. Taking charge, because so much of that is being taken away from parents. Like at a legal level, at a government level, that's scary. Okay. Anyway, aside from that, there are things you have control over, okay? And then there are things you don't have control over. But the circle of concern, let's talk about that. That's the circle of things mostly you don't have control over, okay? Like those kids at school, or bigger things, okay? Environmental disaster, X. Poverty in a different country. Poverty in your own country. Poverty in your street, okay? Violence. Overall violence. I mean, you have control if you're the one causing violence, right? Politics. World events. World peace. National security. That's a good example, okay? I'll nibble on that one because it's relevant to my previous job as an Air Force officer. I was in my sort of direct job, I was not responsible for national security, right? I was a tool. I was somebody who gave information to the people who were responsible to make a decision somewhere up the chain, right? My job was not to make or to influence national security. My job was to somewhere up in that chain to give those people what they needed. So that my circle of concern sort of really revolved around my actual job, right? How well am I going to do that job? How much do I care about that end product of national security being affected? Well, I cared a lot personally, right? And I tried to do my job the best I could, really to the best of my ability. Well, that's really how I've always been my whole life, but that's definitely something that I was cognizant of. And doing your job well, it has so many things attached to that, okay? But in this example, what I'm trying to point out is that I didn't have direct influence over national security, but I played a role. And I wanted to play that role well, because that's what I had. That was my immediate circle of influence. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Spoiler alert, not really. Proactive people focus on their circle of influence. Reactive people focus on their circle of concern. I want to read to you again because Stephen Covey's just so good. I can't match up. Reactive people, on the other hand, focus their efforts in the circle of concern. They focus on the weaknesses of other people, the problems in the environment and circumstances over which they have no control. Their focus results in blaming and accusing attitudes, reactive language, and increased feelings of victimization. The consequence of this, by the way, is that proactive people, by focusing on their circle of influence, which is everything that they have control over, guess what happens? Their circle of influence grows. And oftentimes it is just as big as their circle of concern. And guess what? Their circle of concern gets influence because they have influence, right? People listen to me, people listen to them, people listen to their ideas. They're so proactive and amazing that their ideas get implemented in a way that can actually help people in the world. That is incredible good influence. I'm not talking about bad influence, okay? For everything good, there's always something bad. Like cult leaders and people who have not influence, but fake influence, who have manipulated people with lies and things like that. These people have, quote unquote, a following, but this following is, it's a veneer, guys. It's a smokescreen, a house of cards that is not real. True, lasting, good influence, influenced by the power of good, is something that lasts forever. It is something that a true heart, a true soul, a true sincere soul recognizes as true. Reactive people, what happens is that their circle of influence shrinks. Like I was saying earlier, nobody wants to be around these people. But a lot of these people have tons of people around them, Olivia. Yes, they do. especially if they have money, fame, looks, if they have something you want, if they have something people want. There are a lot of people who overlook a lot of things in their original instinctive desire to be around good people and to be good themselves. They fall prey to a lot of the temptations of this world. They fall prey to peer pressure. They fall prey to a lot of things. But instinctively, the nature of man wants to be good, wants to be around good things. You fight against that nature when you choose bad or evil. So that's why those people are never happy. Okay? How can you be happy? You can't. You can't if you're completely denying the true beauty that is inside you. Okay, we've got into the part of the video where I have, about 3 more things to talk about. Okay? And this is a quick one that we've kind of been talking about. Stephen Covey identifies 3 different types of problems that people encounter. Control problems. Okay, I have to look. No, totally wrong. Totally wrong. I literally just looked at it. Okay. Direct, indirect, and no control. There was the control. Direct problems are basically solved by working on our habits, right? By working on the things that are closest to us that we have influence over. Like, let's say I am late to places. Well, I can form a habit of setting alarms, of being more responsible, of leaving earlier so that I'm not late, right? That's an example of a direct problem. No, it's not my life. I've been routinely late to one thing lately, but most of the time I'm very punctual. Indirect control problems are solved by changing our methods of influence, right? Basically, what Stephen Covey's saying is that most people have only like a repertoire of like 3 or 4. Like, you try to reason with somebody, and if they don't agree, you blow up. That kind of thing, okay? He's saying that he identified like 30 different ones. For example, something like persuasion, something like, well, he doesn't really give any more. Empathy, okay? Like, so many different ways that you can change your methods of influencing other people, but not in a manipulative way, okay? That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about genuine ways that you improve yourself. Like, let's say you take a class on communication, or, better something that helps you communicate, let's say in business or even in your personal life. Like, for example, like, I have tools now from going to therapy, that kind of thing. Okay, these are tools in your repertoire. No control problems. This is something like, there's a fire in your building, or you don't have control over that, right? Or there's a natural disaster that affected your neighborhood, or a politician you don't like gets elected. You don't have control over that. You had control over voting, and you did. Period. Dot. And hopefully. But this is the kind of problem where, that's right, this is the kind of problem where you take responsibility to accept what you can't change and to live with it. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. You will rise above any challenges that happen to you immediately. And ultimately, as much as I care about a lot of things, guys, I care a lot about a lot of things. Maybe you've taken a gander to that, to that. Oops. Maybe you've taken note of that. There are many things I can't change, so I do the best I can. I change myself. And also, I ultimately always believe in the power of good over evil. I always believe there is a cosmic plan for everything. And sometimes you get to see it play out in real time, in real life, in days, weeks, months, years. You get to see, oh, okay, I get it. I get why why that happened, either in your life or in the world. That is what helps me with the no control kinds of problems. Next. Oh yeah, I wanted to point out here that proactivity doesn't mean being pushy. It doesn't mean being obnoxious. It doesn't mean pretty much being those things, okay? People who are those things are not being proactive. They're just being annoying, right? Proactive people are, always remember, if there's somebody you really like, if there's somebody you really admire, first of all, pay attention to what they do and how they are. Proactive people are lights. People always want to be surrounded, they want to be around the light. It's like a little bug that chases the light. We always want to be around light. We don't want to be in the darkness. Proactive people embody light. Reactive people embody darkness. Okay? So, pushiness, obnoxiousness, that kind of thing, that's not proactivity. So don't be fooled. Like if somebody tells you, if somebody's being like really bad to you or horrible or doing some really bad stuff and saying, I'm proactive. No, you're not. I'm not going to say what you are on camera, but you're not proactive. And I'm actually not going to say that. I'm trying not even to think it. It's not good to. I told you the power of words, right? So saying negative things is not good. That person is just deluded. Let's put it that way. Okay. That person is deluded. The haves and the bees. The circle of concern is filled with halves. I'll be happy when I have my house paid off. Okay? If only I had a boss who wasn't such a dictator. If only I had a more patient husband. If only I had obedient kids. If I had my degree. If I could just have more time to myself. The circle of influence is filled with the bees, okay? I can be more patient. I can be wise. I can be loving. It's focused on character. Anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. We empower what's out there to control us. The change paradigm is outside in. What's out there has to change before we can change. Another couple of more examples of be. I can be more resourceful. I can be more diligent. I can be more creative. I can be more cooperative. Okay? This goes with what I was telling you before. If you want to be something, be it, right? If you want to love. You have to take steps. You have to take steps in every direction that you want to, and who you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. That is why proactivity is so incredibly important to being happy. Because being happy is constant work. But it's work that can be a lot of fun. Because being happy just is awesome. Right now I want to mention something that's important. We have the freedom to choose, right? Between a stimulus and a response, we have the freedom to choose. But guess what? We can't choose consequences. We can't choose consequences. That's where that whole conscience thing comes into play. Okay, that's where self-awareness, that's where a lot of things come into play. Between your morality and what's right and what's wrong, for example, and your proactivity. You can choose to step in front of a bus, but you can't choose the consequence of probably being killed by that bus. Okay? You can choose to do a good job at work. You don't know what the consequence is. I am telling you that the consequence will be a good one. It may not be immediate, it might not be apparent, it might not even be in that job that you see it. But you will see it someday, especially if you're self-aware and you have imagination, to be perceptive about these things. But what about all the criminals who just, they don't have any consequences? No, guys, there is a consequence. They may not be caught. They may be the greatest criminal in the world. They may be the greatest corrupt politician that ever walked this earth. And they're rich and they die rich. And without ever being caught. What was the consequence? A corrosion of the soul. Okay? Yeah, Olivia, but yeah, that's not jail time. Not in the way most people think. No. But the journey of a human soul is a long one, guys. It's a long one. The way that I believe it, the way that I see it. So there will always be a price for choosing evil, always. You may not see it right away. You may not even see it in this life, but you will see it. The price for choosing good shouldn't be rooted in fear. Sometimes fear can be good, okay? It plays its role. Yeah, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to break the law because I don't want to go to jail. I am genuinely afraid of that, right? I don't want to walk at night randomly in some dark alley because I'm afraid of what could happen. Fear plays its role, okay? But I'm not going to choose to be good and be proactive in a good way because I'm afraid of evil. I'm not afraid of evil. I am going to choose to be good because I know that is the road to happiness. Because I know that when I make those choices, I'm only happier and happier and happier. It is an entirely and utterly and completely selfish choice in the best way and aspect of selfishness. I want to be happy. I will do whatever it takes to be happy. And by the way, whatever it takes that doesn't harm anybody, etc. I will use my independent will, my imagination, my conscience, and my self-awareness to the fullest to pursue my happiness and my health. It just so happens that I also believe in sharing it with you. And yeah. That could have been a really good ending to the video, but there's one more thing I have to say, guys. Stephen Covey writes at the end of this whole chapter on proactivity that the best way to cultivate that proactivity is to make and keep promises and commitments and to set goals and to achieve them. So keeping a promise and keeping a commitment is such an important thing. It's such an important example of trust in a relationship. That's how you build trust. One of the ways that you build trust. Incidentally, when you break a promise or a commitment, it's one of the worst things you can do, right? And people don't realize this. People don't realize, unless you have the awareness to understand how much a promise somebody broke to you hurt, that you don't want to do that to somebody else. When a parent breaks a promise, that parent walks further and further away from their child. Not physically, child can't go anywhere. Emotionally. Okay? So, make promises and keep them to yourself and to others. Set goals. They can be little ones at first. I'm going to have an entire video on goals, okay? But set goals and achieve them. Always believe that there is a way and that you have the answer. If that's hard, it might help you to think of Viktor Frankl once in a while. It helps me to think of all the people who came before me, who struggled, who fought, who overcame, who even today sometimes I think, why am I doing this? It's so hard. Why? Nobody cares. And then I think, you know what? Other people are doing it too. People have done it throughout time. I care. I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. It's okay. The example of other people's lives, to me, are like just diamonds of light. Well, people people whom I admire, but even the darkest charcoal of ignorance, someone like Adolf Hitler, and that whole thing, and many examples in the world, they are examples. They are not to be ignored. They're not to be taken out of context and twisted around. They are what they are, and they teach us what they teach us. But, it's those diamonds that I hold on to. It's those diamonds of anyone who ever believed that they could achieve anything and did it. The biggest example of proactivity in my life, I think I'm getting teary-eyed. I get emotional. It's my mom. She did everything for us against all the odds. And, part of the reason I believe in Happy Now, Olivia, and what I can do is her fault. Thanks, Mom. I grew up with my mom telling me I could do anything. My mom was the kind of mom who said to us, Brad Pitt can do it. Julia Roberts can do it. They're human. Last time I looked, they had 2 arms and 2 legs. They have 2 eyes. They're human. They can do it. Why can't you? That's what I grew up listening to, guys. I grew up listening to someone say to me, there is nothing you can't do. And I believe it. Because the power of the human soul is more powerful than anything and anyone. It's the power of good.